Welcome back to my channel. This is Sinister Grave, and I have 3 bone-chilling stories to share with you. Carmen Winstead was 17 years old when her parents decided to move to Indiana. Her father had lost his job, and the only way that he could find employment was by moving to a new state. The relocation caused more problems for Carmen. She had to leave her friends behind and attend a whole new school in Indiana. Carmen had a hard time making friends when she changed schools. It was the middle of the school year, and most of the students had no interest in befriending a new girl. Initially, she spent many days alone, walking from class to class without speaking to anyone. But eventually, she started hanging around with a group of 5 other girls. Carmen thought these girls were her friends, but it wasn't long before she discovered that they had been talking about her behind her back and spreading vile rumors. When she confronted them, the girls turned on her and began bullying her every day, making her life a misery. They started calling her names, but then the bullying got much worse. One day, she left her school books in the classroom at break time. When she returned, she found someone had taken a Sharpie and written dirty words all over her books. Another day, she opened her bag and discovered someone had poured yogurt all over the insides. Sometimes she would come to school and find her locker vandalized. But of course, the final straw came when she put on her coat at recess and found that someone had stuffed dog feces into her pockets. There and then, Carmen decided that she couldn't take the bullying any longer. She planned to stay behind that evening after school and tell her teacher what had happened. Unfortunately, her decision came too late to save her life. After lunch, her teacher announced that the school was holding a fire drill. When the alarm sounded, Carmen and the other students filed out of the classrooms and assembled into the courtyard outside. As the teachers read out the roll call, the gang of 5 girls decided that this was a great opportunity to embarrass Carmen in front of the whole school during the fire drill. They moved over to where Carmen was standing, near a sewer drain, and began crowding the girl, getting in her face and nudging her towards the open manhole. They pushed her, and she tripped over and fell headfirst into the manhole. When they saw her falling, the girl started giggling, and when Carmen's name was called out, they shouted that she was down in the sewer. All of the other students began laughing, but when the teachers looked down the manhole, they saw Carmen's body lying at the bottom of the muck. The laughter abruptly stopped. Her head was twisted around at an odd angle, and her face was covered in blood. Worse still, she wasn't moving. There was nothing any of the teachers could do for her. Carmen was dead. When the police arrived and went down into the sewer, they determined that she had broken her neck. Her face had been torn off when she hit the ladder on the way down, and her neck snapped when she landed on her head on the concrete at the bottom. The police hauled Carmen's body out from the sewer and sent her to the mortuary. Everyone had to stay behind after school while the police questioned all of the classmates of Carmen. The 5 girls lied to the police, saying that they had witnessed Carmen falling down the sewer. The police believed the girls, and Carmen Winstead's death was ruled an accident, and the case was closed. Everyone thought that that was the last they would hear of Carmen Winstead, but they were wrong. Months later, Carmen's classmates began receiving strange emails on their MySpaces. The emails were titled, "They Pushed Her," and claimed that Carmen hadn't really fallen down the sewer. She had been pushed. The emails also warned that the guilty people should own up and take responsibility for their crime. If they didn't, there would be horrible consequences. Most people dismissed the emails as a hoax, but others were not so sure. A few days later, one of the girls who pushed Carmen down the sewer was at home taking a shower when she heard a strange crackling laugh. It seemed to be coming from the drain. The girl started to freak out, and she ran out of the bathroom. That night, the girl said goodnight to her mom and went to sleep. 5 hours later, her mom was awoken in the middle of the night by a loud noise that resounded through the house. She ran into her daughter's room, only to find it empty. There was no trace of the girl. The worried mother called the police, and when they arrived, they conducted a search of the area. Eventually, they discovered the girl's grisly remains. Her corpse was lying in the sewer, covered in muck. Her neck was broken. Her face was missing. It had been completely torn off. One by one, all of the girls who pushed Carmen that day were found dead. They had all been killed in the exact same way and were all found at the exact same spot. In the sewer, at the bottom of the same uncovered manhole where Carmen had met her doom. But the killings didn't stop there. More and more of Carmen's former classmates were found dead. It seemed that anyone who didn't believe that Carmen had been pushed was eventually found down in the sewer with their necks broken and with their faces torn off. They say that Carmen's ghost is still on a rampage, hunting down anyone who doesn't believe her story. According to the legend, Carmen will get you whether it's from a toilet, a shower, a sink, or a drain. When you go to sleep, you will wake up in the sewer in complete darkness, paralyzed, unable to move, hearing the crackling sound of laughter all around you. Then, as you scream in horror, Carmen will come and tear your face off. So, be careful who you bully, because you might just find yourself on the receiving end of the curse of Carmen Winstead. There is a new urban legend that has been circulating in schools all over Spain. In whispers and rumors, people are talking about a strange website called the Blind Maiden. This legend is almost totally unknown outside of Spain. It was brought to my attention by a Spanish friend of mine. They say that most of the time the website is offline and you cannot access it no matter how hard you tried. However, according to the rumor, there are 3 rules that you must obey in order to access the website. 1. You must be alone. 2. You must turn off all the lights in your house. 3. You must go to the website at exactly midnight on a moonless night. If you satisfy all of these conditions, you will apparently be granted access to the Blind Maiden website. Once inside, your eyes will immediately be assailed by a never-ending montage of shocking, screaming faces. The pictures are of boys and girls. Their faces are twisted in tremendous fear. Their mouths frozen in a silent scream. Their eyes missing. The pictures are displayed quickly, flashing up on the screen one after the other, with no explanation. According to the legend, some lines of Spanish will appear on the screen. Roughly translated, the text reads something like this: "This website will take you to a whole new level of horror. A horror that will use all 5 of your senses. You must be very careful not to click on anything by accident. You will be faced with a real experience of absolute horror. Click the accept button to engage actively in the experience." Below the text are 2 buttons, accept and decline. At this point, you're probably very curious. You will probably find yourself tempted to click the accept button, but if you accept the challenge, you will only be taking your life in your hands. Click decline and stay safe. This is what is supposed to happen if you click the button and accept the challenge. To your surprise and horror, you will observe on your monitor a sinister silhouette walking towards your own home. You want to wake up. You want this to just be a nightmare. You watch as the specter approaches and enters the same room where you are sitting. You will see on your monitor your own back. Then you will feel a presence behind you. You will feel a tap on your shoulder. The last thing you will see before you die will be the face of the Blind Maiden, staring mercilessly at you with her horrible eyes. According to what I have been able to research, they say the Blind Maiden will rip your eyes and take a snapshot of your face so that you will be forever a part of the website's picture gallery. Are you willing to take this risk? The choice is yours. As I said earlier, I found out about the Blind Maiden's website from a friend of mine who lives in Spain. I don't know whether or not it's an urban legend or if it's true. As far as I know, the legend is currently unknown outside of Spain. Honestly, I have not yet attempted to find the website. Yes, I admit, I am too afraid, but I will pass the challenge on to you. Do you dare check if this urban legend is true or false? Simply a harmless collection of images and web pages, or a horrible reality? Here is a rough English translation of a comment from a Spanish boy who is claimed to have accessed the website. Blind Maiden, o la doncella ciega, or el ciego del soltera. Whatever you want to call it, this urban legend is real, and I almost suffered the consequences of messing with the crazy website. The story that is there is a web page which you can only enter if you are totally alone and with all the lights off in your home at exactly midnight. After that, whatever you do, do not click where it says accept the challenge. Because when you do, you will die. Probably within minutes. I didn't take this advice. I did the opposite and totally accepted the challenge. Right at that moment, I clicked the button. Everything I saw on the screen became so real. I saw a shadow walking towards a place that seemed to be my home. I saw it walk to where I was. Paralyzed with fear, I could not move a muscle. Then it came to the door and began to open it. Right then, I turned around and saw the door behind me open. And then I saw the face that was undescribable, besides the fact that it had no eyes. Then it came closer, and I heard it whispering something I could not understand. And this face changed and became gruesome with an expression of terror I will never forget. I ran with everything I could, and I tripped over something on the floor. I hit the edge of my study table and I fell unconscious. It seems she must have thought I was dead because, thanks to that, I survived. Never again in my life will I play with the supernatural, and I will never underestimate its power. Long ago, there was a Buddhist priest named Kaian Zenji who always wore a blue robe. He spent his days traveling around Japan, meditating and praying, and trying to help those who were in need. One evening, he came to a village called Tomita. As soon as the people there laid eyes on him, they began shouting and screaming. The women and children fled, screaming and wailing, falling over each other in rush to get away. The men grabbed their weapons and came running towards him. "Kill him," they cried in alarm. "Kill him before he kills us." "What is wrong?" asked Kaian as he put up his hands. "You have no need to fear me. I don't mean you any harm." When the men saw his frightened face, they threw down their weapons and laughed nervously. "Sorry," said one man. "We thought you were someone else." "Yes, we apologize for the confusion," another man said sheepishly. "It's because of your blue robe," said another. One of the men introduced himself and invited Cayenne to stay the night at his house. He said he was the village blacksmith and offered him food and drink. "When we saw you coming, we thought you were a demon," he explained. "Why would you think that?" asked Cayenne. "Do I look like a demon?" "Well, it's a horrifying story," replied the blacksmith gravely. "But I might as well tell you. On the mountain above this village there is a temple, and the priest who lives there wears a blue robe just like yours. This priest used to have a reputation for being highly intelligent and kind-hearted. He visited all of our houses, and he was always nice and polite. The people trusted him. All of that changed last spring. The priest went to another village to perform a baptism. When he came back, he had a young boy with him. He was a very good-looking boy, about 12 or 13 of age. The priest spent all of his time with the boy, and it was almost as if he was in love with him. Everyone thought this was very strange. Then, the boy was struck down with an illness. His condition became very serious, and the doctor came from the city to take care of him. Sadly, there was no use, and the boy finally died. The priest cried and cried until he could not cry anymore. He wailed and wailed until his voice gave out. Strangest of all, he wouldn't allow the body to be buried or cremated. Instead, he held the boy's corpse in his arms and clutched his hand and caressed his neck as if he was still alive. We didn't realize at this time, but the priest is gone, stark raving mad. One morning, some of the villagers visited the temple, and what they saw sent them running away, screaming in horror. The priest was eating the boy's flesh and licking his bones. They said the priest had become a demon. Ever since then, the priest has terrorized our village, coming down from the mountain at night, digging up the graves in search of more corpses. When he finds a fresh one, he eats it. We have all heard the old stories about demons, and the people live in fear. Every house is tightly boarded up at sundown, and word has finally spread throughout the area. People don't come here anymore. Now you see why we mistook you for him. What can we do to stop him? Cayenne paused. Strange things happen in this world, he exclaimed. There are some people who are born as humans, but something goes wrong and they do evil and immoral things. This causes them to turn into demons. It has been happening since the beginning of time. In one case I know of, a woman turned into a snake. In another, a man's mother became a ghoul. I know of another man who liked the flesh of children and secretly kidnapped youngsters in order to have them steamed and served as food. A friend of mine, who is a monk, was passing through a village, and he stayed the night in an old woman's hut. It was raining and the wind was howling. He laid awake without even a lamp to comfort him in his loneliness. As the night deepened, he thought that he heard the bleating of a sheep, and soon afterwards, something came sniffing around him to see if he was awake or asleep. Quick as a flash, he lashed out with his stick and struck hard. The creature screamed and collapsed on the floor. The woman heard the ruckus and came out with a lamp. They found a young girl lying unconscious on the floor. The old woman begged him not to kill the girl because it was her daughter. What could he do? He left and went on his way. But later, when he came back to the village, the people were gathered and watching something. When he asked them what was going on, they told him that they had caught a young girl who was a witch, and they were about to burn her alive. "So what do you think happened to our priest?" the blacksmith asked. "I think it has something to do with the young boy," replied Kyan. "This priest's weird and unnatural attachment to the boy led him down a sinful path, and it transformed him into a ghoul. Now that I know what we are dealing with, I may be able to help you and rid your village of this wretched demon. If you can do this for us, all of the people in this area would be eternally grateful," said the blacksmith. "I just need one thing," said Kyan. "A wooden staff with a long, sharp, hidden blade inside." So the blacksmith worked long and hard. He finally presented Kyan with the particular weapon he requested. It looked like a wooden staff, but when you twisted the top and pulled, out came a long, sharp blade. With the staff in hand, Kyan set out on his mission. By the time he had hiked up the top of the mountain, the sun was already setting. The temple looked deserted, and the gates were tangled with thorns and brambles. Spiders were spinning webs on the statues, and the altar was covered with moss and bird droppings. The whole place looked eerie, and it felt of rot and desolation. Kyan walked up to the door and knocked. For a long time there was only silence. And then, from the darkness, a man emerged, snarling and drooling and gnashing his teeth.
"Why have you come here?"
he croaked hoarsely. Kyan backed away cautiously, keeping a safe distance between himself and the ghoul. "This temple is deserted and the people have fled," he said. "In desolate places like this, sometimes evil things happen. The people tell me it's because you have become a demon. They say that night after night you go down to the village and feast on human flesh. Nobody feels safe." The priest was advancing towards him, growling like a feral dog, saliva dripping down his chin, and he looked like he was ravenous. Kyan kept backing away.
"What they say is true,"
snarled the priest.
Human flesh is what I eat, and tonight I shall use your flesh to fill my stomach.
What if I told you there's a cure for your condition? Said Cayenne. The priest was surprised.
A cure?
He asked, eyeing Cayenne suspiciously.
If you know of a cure, then tell me so I can escape this horrible fate.
Cayenne removed his blue hood and threw it at the vile and beastly priest. Put this on, he said. The priest snatched the blue hood off the ground, then sat down on a flat rock in front of the temple and placed it over his head.
Don't try to trick me,
growled the priest.
I can still see you, so keep your distance, and if you don't, I will be licking your bones by dawn.
Solve the following riddle, and you will be freed from your misery, said Cayenne. Listen carefully. He began to recite the riddle. Upon the water, the moonlight glows. Among the trees, the wild breeze blows. Throughout the night, the darkness flows. And why this is, nobody knows. The priest pondered the words for a while.
Can you give me a clue?
He asked. No clues, said Cayenne. You must concentrate hard and meditate on it, no matter how long it takes. Eventually you will understand its meaning and find freedom from this horror. The minutes passed and the hours ticked by as the priest sat thinking and thinking. Cayenne began inching closer and closer. He moved almost imperceptibly, shifting his weight from one leg to another and sliding each foot an inch nearer to where the priest was sitting. The night was coming to an end, and a gray light spread across the sky as dawn arrived. The priest sat motionless on the rock, murmuring a thin voice no louder than the buzzings of a mosquito.
Upon the water, the moonlight glows. Among the trees, the wild breeze blows. Throughout the night, the darkness flows. And why this is, nobody knows.
Cayenne watched silently, his hand firmly grasped on the tip of his rod. He inched closer and closer until the priest was within arm's reach. He suddenly heard a rooster crow in the distance. Well, have you found a solution to the riddle? Asked Cayenne.
Not yet,
replied the priest. That's because there isn't one, said Cayenne, and with a guttural cry, he pulled the long, sharp sword out of the wooden staff and swung it with all of his might. The sharp blade went straight through the priest's neck like a hot knife through butter and sliced his head off clean, sending it rolling down the mountainside. His decapitated body toppled over and fell, lying among the weeds, laid to rest. Kyan cleaned off his blade and slid it back into the rod. Then he set out on a long journey down the mountainside to tell the villagers that their nightmare was finally at its end. Thank you for watching my video. Like and subscribe if you dare. More bone-chilling stories will be told in the near future. Also, you can contact me at my Instagram page, Sinister Grave. And I also want to say that I, Sinister Grave, will be creating shirts and merchandise for this channel. Stay tuned for more information and for more nightmarish stories.